What's going on, everyone? My name is Andy and welcome to another FPL video. We're taking a look forward to Game Week 14, but just before we start with that, I'm going to take a quick look back at Game Week 13, see how that did. As you can see on the screen, didn't go well at all. I got 41 points, but I took a 4-point hit to bring in Martial and Keane for Everton. I benched Trent Alexander-Arnold as part of that, which obviously is a big mistake. I did a stream on Saturday and I was considering benching Arnautovic, but I don't tend to make that decision. I usually play the attacker even when they're playing Man City. So you could say that was a mistake. I mean, Keane was the person I bought in, which eventually ended up with me benching Trent. Obviously, I didn't expect Doherty to do so badly against Huddersfield, and I'm never going to bench Alonso. So that's kind of how it went down. So, I mean, I still got 8 points from Keane. I wasn't necessarily expecting Trent to go ahead and hit in like a 30-yard free kick. But that's the way it happens sometimes. Still glad to own him for now. But let's see what happens now that, or when Gomez, Lovren and him are all fit, how often he gets rotated. Because he didn't miss just one game through kind of maybe a rest or a little bit of rotation. It was 2 games in a row. So I'm a bit fortunate, I think, that other injuries like to Lovren and then Gomez this weekend has meant that he's played. So we'll see if that continues going forward. Like I said, Doherty, no points against Huddersfield. We all thought it was a clean sheet. There's people playing double and triple Wolves. And they've not had a clean sheet now in 5 weeks. So a little bit worrying. We'll talk about them in a minute. Captain-wise, Salah, Mr. Consistent. Yes, he's not getting many double-figure hauls. Doesn't get too much bonus, but he is the main man at Liverpool. And since I've brought him back in, mostly for captaincy reasons, he has performed for me. Obviously not as good as Sterling or SANE this week, but still, I can put the armband on him and trust him to get me some points week in, week out. Martial regresses, which we'll talk about in a minute. Obviously, we weren't necessarily expecting him to keep up the levels of performance he had, but it is disappointing as a new owner to not get the points in the first week. We always want to bring in a player and hit the ground running. Fortunately, it didn't happen for Martial. And Hazard, just a 1-pointer, poor against Spurs. Chelsea in general, just awful. We're going to talk about Spurs in a minute because they look different class. And then just to mention Wan-Bissaka, back on it just before I had a run of fairly good fixtures for him. 6 points. I think bonus points to come in if they get another clean sheet against maybe a weaker team as well. So really happy to have him in my team, still so cheap, and definitely looking at playing him over the next coming weeks. So yeah, pretty poor week, 41 -4, dropped me down to nearly 14,000. So I almost doubled my rank. A game week rank of 4.4 million is pathetic, really. But a lot of people are in the same situation. So hopefully we can kick on and improve that for Game Week 14. So I think when looking ahead to another game week, it's much easier to do that after you've had a good game week. Obviously, the one that I've just described, it's quite easy to go into like a rage situation where you just want to make some transfers, get rid of the duds in your team, and make some quick and rash decisions. But I think a lot of the times when you have a bad game week, that's often the time when you really need to react well, take a step back, not make too many decisions straight away. I mean, I've been looking at Man City players. Do I need to get rid of Martial? Stuff like that, which we're going to talk about. But ultimately, I've not made any decisions just yet, especially as I've got 3 flags, Ryan, Hazard and Arnautovic, which is a bit frustrating, but hopefully they'll all be cleared and fit to play. And I'll wait till the end of the week after Europe and stuff like that to reassess the situation. I am recording this on Tuesday night to make sure that I can get it out for Wednesday. Which means there are some Champions League matches going on. So maybe things will change after that or after tomorrow's matches, but we'll see from there. So let's talk about Man City midfielders. First of all, I almost feel like I shouldn't be talking about this because at this point I should know better and know that Man City players are amazing. Sterling's been better than Salah this season for less money. SANE, wouldn't say I overlooked the fact that Mendy was out. I did consider it, but I thought maybe 9.2 million was too expensive. For someone who could be a rotation threat. But actually, the way kind of Pep's maybe talking about Mahrez and Sterling rotating on the right side could mean that Sané's got a bit of a, kind of go at that left flank without too much competition. But Mahrez or Sterling could play there as well. So I would expect to still see some rotation. But for the points he's scoring and how quickly he does it when he does play, even now he's gone up to 9.3 million, it looks like a great buy. So I think fixtures-wise, no fixture seems tough for Man City, but the ones they've got, apart from Chelsea away in the next 6, are really good. Bournemouth, Watford, Everton, Palace and Leicester. So I'm looking there. And the reason I'm looking now, I suppose, and I haven't before, is because I'm trying to put the excuses I always make back to the back of my head. So usually when I think of Man City or when I thought about Sterling this year, it's like, well, I've got other things to do. Salah's got a good fixture, Hazard's got a good fixture, Aguero's got a good fixture. Well, Sterling's got a good fixture too, and he's been outperforming all of those players. And he's still low ownership as well, especially in the top 10k. I think he's owned by just under 15%, which is still pretty incredible for someone who's scoring so well. And they will never feel like a right time to do it. I hear excuses like, well, Bournemouth is going to be a tougher test than you'd imagine. But this is a team that averages, I think it's more now than 3 goals a game, just over 3 goals a game. And I need to get them in. And I feel like I have to do it this week. Now, they're all starting in the Champions League, so we'll have to wait for injuries and stuff. But Jesus was slightly injured, and he could be back for the weekend, which means Aguero may not play, but he has started every game so far. So I'm pretty confident he will. But we may see reduced minutes. So I think with 3 games in the next 7 days, 7 or 8 days for these Premier League teams, we're going to see rotation, but I don't think it will just be from Man City. So I'm strongly considering getting Sterling in. Now, who to drop for? It's hard to drop Salah for me because he's been so consistent, whereas Hazard's got like 1 assist in the last 5 games, has had a bit of an injury or a few minutes missed, plus tough fixture against some of the top 6 teams. So you could take that into account, but for his price, he needs to be performing better than that. And if he was scoring if Salah was scoring what he was scoring, people will be up in arms and looking to sell. And it's not that much of a price difference where Hazard should be given a free rein. So I'm definitely looking at getting one of them in. I'll talk about that more in my plans. But I think if you haven't got them, they're such good value. They're scoring so many points. There's no, you can talk about regression and stuff. Who foresees Man City suddenly not scoring goals? It just doesn't seem likely to happen, even over Christmas. And they're just worth getting into our team. So not much more to say on that. Yes, there'll probably be some rotation, but at this point, I'm not too concerned about it, especially if you've got a good bench over Christmas. You've probably got a good defender maybe to come in. I'm not playing Doherty this week. In other weeks, I might not be playing Wan-Bissaka or Michael Keane or whoever it might be. And they could come in for SANE or Sterling. So I think with SANE, he does tend to come off the bench, I've noticed, if he doesn't start, whereas Sterling maybe has a complete rest, which may make preference to go for Sterling, especially for captain. But honestly, Sterling is like Salah from last year, performing every week. He's almost a set and forget captain. I'm not sure I captain him against top 6 teams, but definitely against anyone outside the top 6. And then let's look at Spurs. So they played Chelsea, and honestly, Chelsea were poor, and sometimes you can talk about the opposition being bad too much. Spurs were electric. They looked like a different team, one that I hadn't seen play this season, even though they've had the best start to the season. When I've watched them play, they've looked lethargic. Obviously, Eriksen, Ali and Son have not been available for the whole season. Kane, we've said, looks knackered, but even he looked reinvigorated in that game. And I think it's the first league game where Son, Ali, Eriksen and Kane have all started. And we've been saying recently that this fixture swing is coming in game week 15. And I personally wanted to see these 4 play together because that's the team that's performed well, or the attack that's performed well in recent seasons. And as soon as they play together, they absolutely annihilate Chelsea. It could have been more. They should have had more goals for sure. Regardless of how Chelsea played, they should have had more goals. And that was from them creating chances. Son looked like a man possessed. The way he was running about, he looked like he had bags of energy. Like he'd had a kind of whole summer off and not played any football, let alone the matches he has played. And we've seen what he can do before. I'm a huge fan of Son. I just think he's such a likeable guy. And any time I've had him in my team, I've had really good memories of getting points from him. And he's a good price. I think he's only 8.3. So he's the one to look at. Now, obviously, you've got to look at rotation for them, just like Man City, etc. In previous seasons, these 4 have played, but maybe Lamella's been injured. They haven't had Lucas Moura. So they've got options they can bring in. The good thing is they play Arsenal this week, so there's no real rush to get them in. So I'd maybe reassess after that game. But if those 4 start again, and obviously we'll have to take into account what happens in the Champions League, I definitely want to start getting some of them in. Eriksen, there's a few concerns about because he's got these stomach issues, and I don't know if that will allow him to keep playing as much. We'll have to kind of see what Pochettino says about that. Ali has kind of said he's playing a bit deeper, but he did get a goal and assist at the weekend, and again, we can reassess after Arsenal to see how far advanced he plays, how many shots he got, penalty area touches and stuff like that. But for me, Son, just because of the price and how attacking he is, he's usually the one further forward. He's the one that I want. Kane is an option for Aguero, I think, in game week 15. I don't have too many concerns around Aguero because he has started every match, but his returns compared to other Man City players have not been as good, and he obviously is taking up that striker spot. So I may be looking at going Sterling and SANE and bringing Kane in instead. Kane not likely to be rotated that often, is on penalties as well and good fixtures. So although he hasn't been performing up to now, I was really impressed against Chelsea. So I want to see what he does against Arsenal. And then maybe look at bringing them in. So yeah, Spurs are just, from the eye test, they passed it like 100%. Stat-wise, Kane's improving shots and stuff, and like I said, I think Son was one of the best performing midfielders for the current game we just gone. So let's see how he does against Arsenal. But yeah, Spurs were really, really good. So just a few other points that I wanted to talk about as well. Wolves being one, no clean sheet, like I said, for 5 games. Doherty only 1 chance in the current game we just gone, and no goal attempts against Huddersfield, who we wanted clean sheets against. We wanted attacking returns. I don't think that's necessarily a reason to panic, but no clean sheets in 5 games is. And I think if you're maybe looking to double and triple up on them, you could be in trouble. Cardiff should be an okay game. But even they've been performing okay lately. Patterson, for example, up front, although he's a right back for Scotland, which is so weird. But I think in other fantasy games, he's classified as a right back, which would be amazing in FPL. We'd all be on him. But yeah, I digress. It could be that they're getting tired. Maybe the Premier League, kind of the pace and how good the teams are is finally getting to them. It could just be that they're going for a bad patch and they're about to turn it around. But I think before I was kind of talking about playing Doherty every week. I'm not convinced I can do that now, even with his attacking potential. I'm going to have to use him as part of rotation. So I'm happy to own 1 for now, and I'll play them as a rotation of my defenders in the easier games. I think playing kind of 2 or 3 defenders looks very risky now, and I don't know exactly what went wrong for Wolves, but Johnny's obviously out. Maybe that's having some part to play, and it's got to the point now where I'm actually looking at benching Doherty this week against Cardiff. Now, the other thing I could do is bench Richarlison and play 4 at the back, but I think my other defenders, I've got to go with them all at home. Wan-Bissaka, like I said, could be a bonus magnet in that game, and looking like hopefully a clean sheet against Burnley. So Wolves obviously were right up, and they really turned my season around when I got them in on wildcard in game week 5. But right now I'm a little bit wary of them. Not for Jimenez. He came so close to scoring, like it couldn't have been any closer. So frustrating. I'm okay with him, obviously, as an attacker, but defensively wise, they do look suspect. And then moving on, I want to talk about attacking the template. So a lot of people say they get bored with template players, they're worried about ownership. I don't tend to look at ownership too much, but it is something as the season goes on that I look at a bit more. And obviously players like Salah and Hazard are really well owned. You can go on a site called FPL Discovery and click on Gameweek statistics, and that will show you how much a player is owned by, or how many managers own a certain player in like the top 10,000. Because sometimes you get players or FPL managers that start the season and then they stop playing, but they still obviously own that player, but they're not really a live team, so it doesn't really matter what they're doing because they're so far back. So overall ownership starts to become less relevant. I'm obviously nearly in the top 14k, so the people that I'm aiming to beat right now are the people in the top 10k, so I can look at the ownership of certain players and look who's maybe a differential that over Christmas and stuff can boost me up the ranks. So just to give you an idea, I've checked it out. These are kind of the top owned players. So Hazard, 83% own him in the top 10k. Richarlison close, 81%. Salah, 71. Martial's 26, so a bit of a bandwagon there. Aguero is 90% ownership. So you could look at this, I would say, almost negatively or safe, that if you've got those players and they can't hurt your rank if they do well. But similarly, if you've got them, you're not really gaining anything when they do well. All you're kind of doing is stopping your rank from being made worse. And then lastly, Arnautovic is 67.8%. So they're really high home. But this is where it gets really interesting, is you want to attack the template, get in this low this differential player with low ownership. So Sterling's still less than 15%. So only 1.5 of every 10 managers in the top 10k own him. David Silva, 6.8%. Didn't even talk about him in the Man City midfielders, but he has to be a consideration. I got rid of him in game week 9. Apart from one game week since, he's scored points every week. Sigurdsson, if you're not looking at Richarlison, you want a differential for those Everton fixtures. Sigurdsson's only 3.6%. Penalties, set pieces, he could be good too. SANE is the big one. 9.3 million in a Man City midfield that's going to score loads of goals. 0.6%. And another big one, Kane, 0.9%. So he's 22% owned overall. But in the top 10k, only 0.9%. Now, worth saying with these numbers that they are based on Game Week 13 ownership. So they will have changed, obviously, going in towards Game Week 14, but not massively. So Kane at 0.9% with a great fixture on coming. And Aguero at 90%. If Kane can outscore Aguero over the next few weeks, that's a huge rank boost for you. And then Aubameyang 1.7. Mitrovic, who's just scored. Fulham got Ranieri in. He's scored a brace. Mitrovic scored a brace, that is not Ranieri. You got a bit of a fixture swing again coming in game week 17. He's only owned by 5.3% now, so maybe he becomes part of the template again. So I don't want to read out all the numbers. Defensively, you've got like Shaw 0.6%. Lindelof is injured. Phil Jones is playing in the Champions League, so as long as he can stay injury free, he may help the Man United defence out, as weird as that sounds. And then, you know, people like Toby Alderweireld are 0.1%. Again, Spurs, fixture swing soon. So I guess the idea is there, if you're looking for players to boost you up the ranks that aren't highly owned for the people higher up that you're trying to catch. Obviously, if you're in the top 10k, it's a bit different. But these are the kind of players you're looking at. You know, people go on about Man City midfielders and how lots of people own Sterling and stuff. They don't. Sterling's owned by less than 15%. SANE is less than 1%. That will definitely change this week, but again, it's not going to grow massively. So these are the players you want to target, and that's what I'm looking at this week. And just before I come on to my plans and talk about them a little bit more, can you reverse a 1 week transfer Martial? I'm looking at doing it. It's a bit of a knee-jerk, I know. I just feel that over the next few weeks, if I can get some money there to upgrade to SANE will outscore him. He looked okay against Palace, didn't get many good chances. The reaction for me was not necessarily how he played, it's how Man United played. And Man United were awful. They got no game plan. They just don't look like a unit, no chemistry there. And I knew that before going into this. And I got kind of rolled up in the hype of Martial, I think. And I think that's a mistake on my part. He was always going to regress. That doesn't mean he's a bad pick still. There's Southampton away, Fulham to come at home. And even though they got that win, Fulham, they still conceded 2 goals against Southampton. So I think there's still goals against them to come. So 2 good fixtures in the next 3, and you know the other fixture is Arsenal, so we'll have to see what happens there. I think the safe and sensible option is to keep him, but I'm still looking at getting rid of him. But he's definitely nailed for now. He may even be on penalty, so I think he's a good pick still. But I think I maybe got caught up in the hype and didn't consider not just how he was performing, but Man United in general are just awful at the moment. So my plans, I've got loads of things that I'm thinking of. I want to get in a Man City midfielder. You know, if Hazard's ruled out, which we don't know if he is for sure, then him to Sterling looks a very obvious move. If not, I'll probably keep him for the Fulham game. And that's where it gets tricky. I may not go with any Man City midfielders again, but this is what I was talking about earlier about always having an excuse not to get them in, and it never being the right time. And all that time I don't have them, I'm missing out on loads of points. So I'm a bit worried there. So Hazard to Sterling for sure if Hazard's injured. Otherwise, I'm looking at Salah or Martial for a hit out to Sterling and SANE. My only worry about that is who is my captain in game week 16, because Man City play Chelsea and I won't want to captain them there. Obviously have triple Man City players for Bournemouth. I think that's okay. And then eventually I'll look to do Aguero to Kane, and I'll probably fund that through Hazard to maybe someone like Son. So I'm looking at hits for the next couple of weeks, but I'm going for those those non-template players. And I think it won't be long until SANE and Sterling are absolutely part of the top 10k template. So I want to try and get in there first. So that's what I'm looking at. For captain, if I had my team as it is now, it's on Aguero, but I'm a little bit worried about the amount of minutes he might play in Europe. So I may switch to Salah, who's been Mr. Dependable. And I haven't ruled out captain in Hazard, but I really need Sarri to tell me that he's fully fit and ready to go. If there's any doubts about his fitness, that he might not start, that he's carrying a knock or something like that, I just can't go there. It's not worth the risk. So Aguero right now, I've got a feeling I'll switch it to Salah. If I bring Sterling or SANE in, I'll probably put it on one of them. But that's my plans. Alternatively, I can make no transfers, and my team's looking okay this week. I've got to try and put Game Week 13 out the back of my mind and look ahead to Game Week 14. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I think this has probably gone on quite long tonight, or for this video, and I don't want to say sorry, and I apologise for that. I've basically been trying to make these videos quicker recently, because I know a lot of people like the bite-sized chunks, but I've kind of thought this is the way I like to do it. If I talk a bit longer than normal, or if it goes on a bit longer, then you know, whatever, that's the way I do these videos, and hopefully people like them. If they don't, that's fair enough. You don't have to watch them. But for weeks like this, I feel like there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of big points to talk about, and I want to talk about them all without completely rushing through them. So hopefully that was okay. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. At this point, I don't even know how long it is, so I'll stop waffling. I am doing Movember. I'll shut up about it soon, nearly at the end of November. Raised €650, which is awesome at the time of recording this. So thanks to everyone that's already donated. I'd love to get to 750 before the end now. It seems like a nice round number. So if you've thought about donating and you've got a few spare quid, I'd really appreciate it. Obviously, absolutely no obligations to do that, but it would be really cool if you can. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Hit 25,000 subscribers in the last stream, so love that. Thanks very much for subscribing. And leave comments below about what I've said, what your plans are, and any questions you got. Otherwise, I'll be streaming on Thursday as normal. Thanks very much, everyone. Catch you later.